Welcome to The Business Fighter with Henry Penix. Henry has been the CEO, founder, and consultant to hundreds of companies worldwide. He retired a multimillionaire, financially independent at the age of 35. Henry grew up a preacher's son and was thrown in jail 3 times for various altercations. He knows what it means to come from nothing and have to fight his way to the top. Henry is the business fighter who will teach you strategic skills for winning in business and in life. Don't just spectate, participate. It's time to get in the ring.
Hey guys, Henry Penix, the business fighter, coming at you with another podcast. I've got a guest on my show today that is so relevant to these times we're living in right now. This is going to air probably 3 weeks after we record it, but I know we're going to be right in the middle of this big pandemic with the coronavirus. And she does a lot on how to maintain your resilience, how to create it, how to maintain it, how to get through tough times. And she just didn't pop up with this overnight just for this season. It's something that she has actually practiced throughout her entire life. So you're going to love her, as I already do. Kristin, welcome to the Henry Penix Business Fighter podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is great. I really, I'm already loving talking to you before we even came on camera.
No, me too. We found some of our cross business paths back in Philly, and shared some stories with that, which we may get into here in a bit. So Brilliantly Resilient is the program that you're involved in. You've got a successful show that do you air that every day now?
Yeah, it's a daily show that, talk about practice what you preach, right? We just had to be, my partner and I, my friend Mary Fran, we had to be just resilient in our plan. I'm a planner. I'm a big time planner. I don't know about you, but I'm a Virgo, and I'm I'm a little bit on the type A side. I like to plan. Right. I like to check the boxes and execute, right? And when we had just launched the live program, we had it all stepped out for 3 years, modules and different things. And then when everything happened around the globe now with this pandemic, we started realizing that people need these tools now. Businesses are closing, families are upside down and inside out. Everything that could possibly happen is happening. And I've never been so happy that me and like I said, my buddy Mary Fran, we have had so much practice in resilience. I call it from live sucker punches. I mean, I just am like, I've never been so happy I had so many sucker punches in my life to bounce back from. But now it can be beautiful, right?
You're a badass from Philly. That's why.
I know, it's like the Rocky theme, right? I'm listening to
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about, Kristin.
Yeah.
That's exactly what was. So before you got into all this, I just want to touch a few minutes because I want to dive right into what you do, because I think my audience is going to love you. I think they're going to love what you stand for and what you can bring to them, especially during these times about being resilient and getting through tough times. But what led you up to that? Like I said, you didn't create this yesterday. But give me just a little bit about your background, what got in your heart and your spirit to come to this point in your life, and then let's jump into some meat of it.
Yeah. So honestly, I was one of those people. I always joke now that if I would know me 20 years ago, I would get on my own nerves. Because I was.
And you admit that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of those people that my whole life, I knew from the time I was 5 that I was going to be a teacher. So I'm telling you, I was a planner. It's in my DNA. I knew my whole life I'd be a teacher, and I followed every rule. People constantly told me when I was growing up, talk about self-talk. I had everybody around me saying, you're a leader, you're gifted, you're talented, you're blessed, you'll be an amazing teacher. I followed all the rules. I went to, as we were talking about Westchester, outside of my town of Philly here, I went to the school to be a teacher all those years ago. And I did everything you were supposed to. I graduated, I landed the job. I had the husband, the big house, the perfect life. But my number one dream was to be a mom. And I finally had everything I ever wanted. And my newborn baby was as perfect can be. And then, and I checked every box. I read that darn book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. I mean, I had it memorized. I had the food right, everything. Yeah. 4 months old, we go to the doctor, and the doctor says, your son is blind. And I'm like,
oh my gosh, Kristin.
Wait a minute. What? That wasn't in the program. That was nothing I was prepared for. And at that point in my life, I'm 28 years old, right? And I'm telling you, my life was picture perfect. And he says blind. And I thought, you know, when you're preparing to have a child, like I said about what to expect when you're expecting, I was envisioning as my belly's growing, right? My dreams were getting ginormous for him. And I was always an athlete. So I'm thinking, gosh, is he going to go football or baseball? Is he, you know, all this stuff. And I'm envisioning the valedictorian on the stage and his wedding, you know, and then I hear your son is blind. And I got to be honest that it crashed me to the floor, because all they could tell me 20 years ago was, we don't know what to tell you. Good luck.
Oh, no.
I knew nothing about blindness. I will say now, to fast forward the story a little bit, I ended up having a second blind son as well, 3 years later. I will say now that I know that I was deep in the devastating pit where everybody that hears the word blind has the same reaction that you did, the same reaction I had, because nobody knows anything about it for the most part. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Unless you're as blessed as I am now to be surrounded by the most successful people and they have no sight. I didn't know that 20 years ago. You know, I give myself a lot of grace now. I didn't know that. And hardly anybody does. So that's why the word blind is so synonymous with devastation, you know? Mm-hmm. And it was actually lucky enough for me that when Michael, my oldest blind son, I was very pregnant with my second son and had no idea if he was going to be affected or not. And I was struggling at 8 months pregnant. I call myself the delirious optimist because I live a lot in denial.
I love that.
And denial has carried me a long way, I will say. I'll tell you a few more things that I've done. And people are like, have you given this a second thought? Nope, you can't, because you could never get into it in the first place, right? So
ready, anyways, fire, aim.
yeah, right? So I was all of a sudden, reality started to set in at 8 months pregnant. And I thought, oh my God, there was a 25% chance that my second son would be affected. And I was so scared, I was still crying every single night with my oldest son. I still was trying to figure it out. And my Michael, I always say that he never walked. He bounced and skipped. He was so happy. And he bounced into my bedroom that morning. And his famous line that changed my life was, "Mommy, isn't this the best day ever?" And I said to him, "Why is it the best day ever?" He said, "Mommy, I have everything I need. The sun is shining and I'm so happy." And he was. And the thing was, blindness didn't bother Michael at all. It never has. And I always say I was the one that was blind to the possibility of him having an extraordinary life. And when I finally let that settle in and changed my complete perception of blindness and challenge and what motherhood really is, just to guide him and get him the tools that he needs, and then back up and follow his lead. When I finally had that change in perception, I'm telling you, I was saying when we first met that my life has been very serendipitous of who comes into my journey. I honestly believe that everybody's life, every person and thing you need has been given to you. You just don't see it. Mm-hmm. And I had not seen for 3 years that all these people had been sent to me that I wasn't paying attention to. I had been knocking on doors that I didn't see where they were open. I was looking at the wrong doors kind of thing. And then when my eyes were open finally from Michael, everything changed. And do you know that him and my second son, they have gone on to win. Michael's at Penn State now. I mean, he's home with me now, but he's at Penn State. My second son is a junior in high school. I have a sighted daughter. But my boys have won baseball championships. They've been stars. Michael was a star on a football team. Michael was the valedictorian in high school.
No kidding.
Mitchell was identified last year as a top blind athlete in the country. We were out at Team USA headquarters. I mean, here's the key.
Congratulations.
I took my dreams off of them. And I wish that every parent would write that down and stick it on their refrigerator and see it every day, because their lives aren't our lives. That's not what they're here for. And I think that's where we all run into the problems with kids, that they're trying to live under the weight of our dreams and their dreams. And that's where they're having all the problems. And we just have to take ours off and follow their lead. And that was the blessing of blindness. I didn't know what the hell they were going to do, right? Nobody had any
There's no way you can plan
expectation.
for it.
So I'm like, you guys have a
So,
clean slate. I'll just follow you and carry your water bottle, you know?
so even though you could see back then, you didn't necessarily have sight.
Nope.
And they couldn't see, but they had sight.
They had vision from the time they were born.
Right. So they're looking out into the future. Do you think that, and I just talked with somebody about this the other day, do you think that when we have blueprints of our life and we're so stuck on those blueprints that if something a little different happens, does that throw some people into a tizzy and this sometimes downward spiral that they can't get out of it?
Yeah, that's where they end up stuck. So my friend, Mary Fran, that I mentioned in the Brilliantly Resilient program, her thing is, one of the things about moving forward, she says, don't be married to the outcomes. You need to set goals. I mean, obviously we have to set goals. We have to have a business plan. We have to do all that stuff. But if you are so stuck on checking that box, you're going to miss all these other opportunities along the way. You'll never pivot. You'll stay stuck. You'll never bend and flow with all of this. And those sucker punches are going to keep you down.
Yeah, I wrote a book a few years ago in one of my books, and I used the example of an airplane. And sometimes when the pilot goes out and does all of his pre-checks, he knows where he wants to ultimately land. And then he comes and he does his pre-checks. And some people get paralysis from analysis. So some people plan so much that they can't do anything. And in my example, in my book, I would talk about how, he checks the oil, the wings, the temperature, the tires, walks all around. And by the time he's finished, he's saying, well, they may have changed. So let me check one more time. And he never takes off. But Kristin, it's not until we take off in life that we start meeting the headwinds and we start, monitoring for how much gas we have in our engines, how much weight we have. It's not until we take off that we actually can sort of be pliable to the things that are coming against us to see really where we are flying. I talked to a pilot and he said, Henry, did you know that once you leave land, you're never, let me repeat this, you're never 100% on course because of the winds, because of the weight, because of this, because of that. So you're never on course, ever 100% on course. But if you keep that vision of ultimately where you want to go, you're going to land there. But getting there, if you're not pliable, you're going to drive yourself nuts.
Wow.
So I always remember that example. And as we sort of adjust in life, like it sounds like you have and had to, especially you being this awesome planner, if people don't realize that, they drive themselves nuts, that you've got to be pliable.
Yeah. Well, I love your example of an airplane because people think that you have to be so safe with the airplane. Right. So people try to play it safe in their lives. And like I did, follow the plan, have the dream, check the box, all of that. And look, we do need our planners. We need our type A's. I love them all, all those folks. But if you are so married to that, checking that box, and you're missing all these other chances, because you don't know what's going, I mean, I never planned for blindness and it took me a long time. I don't want to act like this was, 3 years and then I was good to go. And I still slip back there. But I know my triggers now. But I can fully say 1000% that I don't call blindness a blessing. It's my change in perception of blindness that was the big blessing. And I learned it from a 3.5-year-old. And that changed. So look, I was still putting it in practice with my sighted daughter when she walked away from soccer. I grew up my entire life soccer. I played at Westchester, and she followed right behind me, was 10 times better than me. And there was club soccer in our town, just got ridiculous. And she found a basketball team and a passion for that. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
You can't kick a basketball.
Yeah, I'm like, we're soccer here. I got all the gear. I just spent a fortune on the gear. We've been waiting for this our whole lives. And she's 10 times better as a basketball player because she's happy and confident and loves it. And I always joke that and field hockey, I don't know anything about. Those are the sports that she chose. I just sit there and cheer her on, right? I can't give her any tips. So
Yeah. She probably really secretly searched that out, so you couldn't give her any tips.
Yeah. What does mom not know about?
Yeah. So Brilliantly Resilient. I love that title. Give me, believe it or not, we've only got about 6 or 7 more minutes left. Give me some golden nuggets that my audience can listen to, that through everything you've been through, it's been from a life that you've led, not from a book that you've read. So everything that you've been through and everything that you've done, Give me 2 or 3 golden nuggets about how we can be resilient during these times. And I know you've touched on some of those things, and I've got a couple things to share as well, but how can we be resilient during these times to hold on until, if it takes 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 16 or 6 months, how do we hold on and be resilient now to make it through these times?
Look, here's the one biggest golden nugget. People think that they have to learn resilience. Resilience is innate in us. We've done brain research and all that stuff. We are creatures that are designed to adapt and to be resilient. So the one thing I want everybody to do is take the pressure off yourself. You already have this. You don't have to go learn it. What you have to do is uncover it. And that's what we do in Brilliant and Resilient. We help you uncover. And there's 3 steps that we say. What you need to do is you need to reset is the first one. And that's where the change in perception happened for me. I had to reset my whole mindset on what I was about to take on with raising 2 blind kids. I had to get out of devastation and realize, I had to get educated on it to help reset my mind, right? Mm-hmm. The second part of it is to skip through as quickly as possible. The second part is the rise. So you start to figure, what are your gifts and talents that are part of your brilliance? What do you have? What are your strengths that you can utilize after you reset your mind to start moving forward? And my friend Mary Fran always says, you got to assess. You got to see you have to ask yourself, what can I actually do? What do I actually have control of? And I think that's where, I know for me in this pandemic crisis and being a single mom of 3 kids, all kinds of things go through my mind of what if I never have another speaking gig for 2 years? What if they never get back to school? What if the technology, okay, I can't control any of that. I can control how much time we're going to have together sitting around at the dinner table and talking about all the stuff that's going on. Yeah.
I control today.
Yeah. And Mary Fran actually says 15 minutes at a time when she had her crisis.
I believe that. Yep.
15 minutes at a time. Don't even look at the next day.
Yeah, I believe that.
And turn the news off. Give yourself some time and then turn it off, because that doesn't help at all. Then you just get as many as
that changes every other day. That changes every other day anyway. They could say something now that they're for sure of, and in 24 hours they're not so sure.
Yeah, and they're tweeting about it, and then the next day someone's saying, you had a dumb tweet yesterday, you didn't know. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we have the reset, the rise, where you start to come out of this, right? All the stuff you can control and the steps that you can take, and then the reveal of your brilliance. Take a look. What are the gifts and talents that you already have that have helped you get through? And what we say then is start to pay attention to what can you do in the next part of your story based on your gifts and talents and values, right? I found I always wanted to be a teacher. I walked away from that. Then 9 years later, after the first blindness diagnosis, it just happened that I was called to start the patient organization. I didn't know anything about that for this blindness. I then put my teaching skills. We're known around the globe now. I wrote a book. We're changing perceptions of blindness just by me teaching people about blindness. So find those gifts and talents you already have, and then start to channel them for your next part of your story.
I love the part you said about already having the sort of the instinct to survive. And if ever I'm speaking somewhere, I always use the story about when we first started walking. Like when we first started walking and fell, did we stay down there, or did our parents let us stay down on the ground and just crawl forever? No, we got back up. We innately got back up. Kristin, I didn't go to a seminar that said, what are the 10 best ways to learn how to walk? I didn't grab a book that said to walk in 10 steps or less, no pun intended. I didn't do any of that. I just innately and internally and instinctually got back up. And that has followed me the rest of my life. When I first tried to ride a bicycle, think about that. When those training wheels first came off, I ate asphalt. Like, I was bloody, I fell, but did I lay on the ground with my bike sitting there by me and never get back up? No. Yeah. Did I go to a seminar on how to ride a bike? No. Did I, you get my point. I always got back up. I always tried again. I always tried harder. I can walk. I'll show you in a few minutes. I can ride a bike. I'll show you in a few minutes, because it was my instinct to survive that got me back up. And I agree with you. If we use those instincts now, knowing that we can always get up, knowing that no matter how many times we get sucker punched like you were, no matter how many times we have to be pliable or flexible in our life plan, that we can change that blueprint a little bit. We can launch that plane. We can get up and not think about anything else except just where we're going to go. And anywhere where life takes us, we can sort of mold and be pliable to that, so that we will land where we wanted to ultimately. Like you said, you were saying how your son was going to be valedictorian, and you thought in your mind, that'll never happen. All my dreams are crashed. That's never going to happen and all that. And then he's valedictorian. I mean,
and he never knew that was one of my dreams. I just shut up and then he took it and did it.
See, he had a bigger natural instinct to survive than you even gave him credit for, as being his own mom. And so, to your point as well, don't try to make your kids live their lives through your eyes, or don't serendipitously try to live through your kids' lives, but let them do what they want to do. My father's a pastor, so I grew up hearing Bible verses, and the part that says that he'll give us the desires of our heart. The word desire comes from the Latin root word sire, and sire is like, the male dog is the sire. Mm-hmm. So everything that comes from above, from the sire, I'll give you the desires of your heart. You also are equipped with everything you need to manifest those desires. Yeah. And if you tell somebody else your desire, Kristin, and they don't get it, or they don't believe it, or they don't want you to do it, don't get mad at them, because it's not their desire. It wasn't imparted to them. But when you get that download from the sire and from your father, you've got everything you need to accomplish that, as long as you remain flexible and pliable. Don't get too hung up on that blueprint, because it may change a little bit. Take one day at a time, one step at a time. Know that you've got the instinct to survive, like you just so eloquently said. We're going to get there. Yeah. We're going to get past this pandemic. We're going to get where we want to go in life. Take the pressure off yourself.
Yeah. I'll say, I always ask folks now, there is the light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to get through this. The question you need to keep asking yourself is, do you want to come out on the other side brilliant or broken?
Oh, I don't
want to end broken. I was there.
Love that.
Broken's too hard.
Well, and sometimes would you agree that people get broken to become brilliant?
Oh, absolutely. Look at my life.
I know I have.
It's one of those things where God keeps saying to me, for the love of Pete, I am saying to you, you need to learn this. I'm going to break it again, and you need to learn. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got it now. Let's move on. I always joke with the footprints poem, where they say there's that one set of footprints and God's carrying it. Mine has a drag mark. He's dragging me to the lesson.
Gosh, I wish I had an hour podcast, because I would just keep talking to you, because I think we're just now getting into something. I want to formally invite you back.
Awesome.
Because I want to do another one. I want to do a part 2 about just what you mentioned. And I won't prolong this, but there's some stuff there that I think would really help people and bless people tremendously. Where do they find you? How can people hear more of you? How can people listen to your show? How do we get in touch with you?
So if you search Brilliantly Resilient and go to brilliantlyresilient.net, you can find me personally, my partner in this, Mary Fran, and all of our new YouTube channel, the Facebook channel. There's a group there that's where we have the live show broadcast there, and then we send it out everywhere. We are learning on the fly. This was supposed to be a professional produced show this summer, and we just turned on our laptops and said, you got to have this info now. So you'll see my hats all the time, my trucker hats, because no salons are open, people. I'm cutting my bangs on my own, You never know what you're going to see, but we have amazing, brilliant guests on that are literally carrying me through this massive, massive sucker punch and carrying everybody else through. And we're learning a lot. And I think that you'll really enjoy it.
Guys, Henry, the business fighter, we've listened to Kristin Smedley for the last few minutes, Brilliantly Resilient. Please, please, please take a few minutes right now and think of just 10 people you could share this with. Think of 10 people that you could send this to that would have an impact on their life, especially in these times right now. We've been blessed to be a blessing. Kristin, everything that I've heard you say, every sucker punch that you've received in life, everything that you've gone through, to turn that around to help other people is so unselfish and so honorable of you. I don't even have the words to describe it, but I've so enjoyed meeting you. Again, I'm going to formally invite you back sooner than later. I want to do a part 2 of this, because I've got 100 more questions, and have a great and blessed day. And thank you so much for taking your time out. We're recording this on a Saturday here. It's probably the only time you and I have to kind of wind down and do stuff like this, but thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday and being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. This has been brilliant. I love it.
All right. Talk to you later.
See ya.